I will always root for the underdog. I always want people to be happy. I always hope that people are happiest with me. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case.
But I got to chime in here. Sometimes the fuel that burns the hottest is proving other people wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's really positive when it's just about proving yourself right. But what I'm getting at is that those haters are fuel in the tank.
Oh, for sure.
And it pushes you, and it actually ends up that where their hate might be that they're wishing failure upon you or hating on you, that what they end up doing is actually fueling your success.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're so outwardly wishing that upon you that you're able to take that and harness that energy and turn it into something very positive and very powerful. We are back with another episode of The Julius File. I am your host, Jason Julius, and today we have an Entrepreneurial Chronicle. I have a Miss Tiffany Rodabaugh, owner and CEO of Apple Tree Realty. Tiffany, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. So this is very much conversational. I mean, I will say that I want all of those lessons that you've learned and brought to small business entrepreneurship. But I'd like to kind of go backwards and start a little bit earlier in life as to picking a starting point and where you started in life, and let's go from there and walk forward. I've had people pick all the way from starting at 2 years old, starting at in their 18s to their 20s. I mean, where would you like to start talking about where your life began before getting to that entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, goodness. Well, since we're talking real estate, I guess how I got in real estate, I will say, is twofold.
Okay.
I will say is one, sort of the fault of motherhood, right?
Oh, well, we wouldn't call that necessarily call that a fault, but I mean, hey, yeah. Okay.
Well, to this day, I'm that mom. I am probably a bit overprotective, and I am. The world is crazy, and I am gonna make sure I know what's going on. So I actually was working at First National Bank downtown.
Okay.
So started.
Oh, and that would have been First National, but when they were originally and built their building downtown. Okay, yeah, now I got
so
you.
Actually, I was started in the drive-through branch, which was on Jackson, just a tiny little building, just three of us in there all day long. And boy, I could tell you a lot of tales of things that happened in there, but, went from there to the main office, went from the teller line to, a customer service rep, which basically you can do the teller line, you can open CDs, accounts, so on and so forth. And then at that time, many moons ago, over 20 years ago, which seems crazy to say.
A little bit of reflections, not bad. No, I get
crazy. But at that time, First National Bank was building their big main office, and that was down across from Palmer's on the square. So down there, it was a highly sought after position. Everybody wanted to kind of be down there. That was the place to be. So there was going to be two of us down there doing the customer service job. You were going to work closely with the trust department, and that kind of evolved into a personal banking position. In that position, you got really close relationships with a lot of the business owners in town.
Being downtown, I understand.
Opening accounts and driving to different businesses to pick up deposits, just really catering to them and getting to know them well, which then evolved into many nights at Sycamore Grill.
And I personally, I still remember Sandy's Sycamore Grill. Yep. That was it was a very, very popular, very sought after place back then.
Yes. In a relationship, obviously, with now my ex-husband who works for me. So I just tell people I am a nice person. If your ex-husband eventually comes to work for you, I'm telling you, you have to be a nice person. but
and don't get me wrong, because I'm speaking from an opposite perspective. If nothing else, your ex has to at least have enough respect and trust for you to guide and steer a business to provide them employment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Mutual respect is a good thing. It also helps in rearing children when you're divorced, I will say. Yeah. So kudos to both of us. But obviously divorced now. But when we were having our daughter, when I was pregnant, that's when it really was like, I don't want to work a 9 to 5.
Okay.
And at that time, at the grill, many conversations with Scott Pitcher.
Okay.
Fortune Management. I decided I was going to get out of banking and work a job where I could create my own hours. And so I went in.
Oh, so Scott gave you that flexibility then.
Right.
Okay.
I went into Fortune Management. I actually worked under Mike Spear, who worked for Scott at Fortune Management. And that's where I got my feet wet in real estate.
Okay.
Fell in love with it.
That's just about to say. So is that where you caught the bug?
That's where I caught the bug.
Okay.
So, like I said, over 20 years ago, it was really kind of out of necessity. I didn't know that I was going to love real estate. Mm-hmm. It just was an opportunity to be able to make money and not have to put my baby in daycare. Okay. Which was above all else what I wanted to do. But I did catch the bug and I did love it. Loved my time there. Love Scott to this day for giving me that opportunity. But residential is where my heart was.
Really?
So ended up leaving Fortune to go to, actually I went to Tucker from there and have nothing but positive things to say about my time with FC Tucker. I was there for 6 years and actually I might have said that backwards. I was there for 4 years. And then,
it's okay. It kind of gets, I mean, you start looking into the past and it does. It just all kind of,
again, nothing grew from there. Was under Brad Tomlinson, great friend of mine. We share a birthday. Great guy.
Buddies,
yeah. Okay. No hard feelings. Learned so much. Jean Ferentz was our office manager. Learned so much from her. Have nothing but respect for her. But as an office dynamic, I was, young in the office and had some really good friends at the Wyman Group at the time.
Okay.
And felt that I might fit better. Was kind of in the same stage as a lot of the ladies at the Wyman Group. So went on to be at the Wyman Group for 6 years.
Okay. So you were, how long were you with Scott then?
Probably just a couple of years. I was not licensed.
Yeah. No. But I'm just sitting there going, before you actually broke out on your own, you had a good decade, a little more than a decade.
I was licensed. I was a licensed agent between Tucker and Wyman Group for a decade.
Okay.
And then I just worked as an assistant and, in the office helping Scott for a few years before I ever became licensed.
Yeah.
But I was licensed for a decade before I started Apple Tree.
Okay.
And again, under Paul, had a great experience. Everything was good. It really was a matter of thinking, my goodness, I got my real estate license. I was young. And I thought, if I'm going to continue to do this for another, realtors don't retire.
Exactly.
We just die eventually.
Because with real estate, I say with real estate, with everything, it's still about relationships.
Absolutely.
But in real estate, it's like if I sell a cup of coffee, I'll probably see you tomorrow to sell you another cup of coffee. Right. But if you sell somebody a house, it's liable to be a couple of years before they're going to come back around asking to buy another home.
We joke about it, and you're probably going to stick around and do this for a good long time.
Yeah.
So it just kind of made a lot of sense. It was like, I've been doing this for a decade. If I'm really gonna keep doing this for many more decades, it might make a lot of sense to do this for myself.
Yep.
And I really wanted to. I just had some things that I wanted to do a little bit differently that made more sense to me. That I knew some other people thought might be a better way of doing things.
So innovation still occurring inside of the real estate industry. Okay.
So that's how Apple Tree was born.
Just out of curiosity, where did the name Apple Tree come from?
So this is so funny. Well, so a good girlfriend of mine actually started Apple Tree with me. God bless her, she was not licensed at the time, had no interest in real estate. She just is that good of a friend. I could have said, let's start a gas station. I mean, I say this to her credit because I don't know if I would have had the same guts, to say, sure, yeah, I'll get my license. I've never even considered it, but let's do it, And she did. She was just down. Like you said, she was just down like that. So she did it. But we were having drinks.
No, somehow I knew that's where somehow I knew that was how this was going, because you know what, a lot of crazy ideas are conceptualized at a bar on bar table napkins.
Well, now we were not at a bar; we were at a pool.
Okay, but sooner or later, sobriety comes back around, and then you got to decide whether you're going to do your half dreamed up concoction.
For the record, I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah. But as it were, cocktails were had. Yeah. But we were just discussing, and I've always been, and her too, we were just discussing how we really wanted to do this and we're not showboaty. It's like, I don't care if we are, in fact, I've told every agent that I have ever taken on to Apple Tree, said, if you are looking to be in the biggest agency in Kokomo, this is not going to be for you. Because that's not what I want. That's
more of a boutique.
Yeah. Okay. This is about relationship for me. This is about your relationship with your clients and my relationship with you. This is about your relationship with your family. And this is about making sure that you're happy. I'm not going to crack the whip on you. You don't have a quota to meet. I want you to be happy.
And that goes back to that quality of life is more important than life itself.
100%. And so we were saying, someone had come over when we were in the midst of this conversation, and
they decided they were going to have a drink as well.
Well, they came over and they were kind of bragging about something, and we were kind of like, eek, it's just kind of yuck.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's what we don't want to be like.
Okay.
And so I said, I don't know exactly what the quote is. I still don't know exactly what the quote is. But I said, that quote that says something like, a fruit tree doesn't tell people that it bears fruit. It just does. I'm like, that's what I want it to be like. And she's like, that's the name. And I'm like, well, that's a really long name.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, no. Apple Tree. And that was it.
And that's where it came from.
That was it.
And the moral to that story is keep your ego in check, because nobody really appreciates a very braggadocious individual.
100%.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep, that's where it came from.
Okay, so how long has Apple Tree Realty been in existence?
Apple Tree Realty, I obtained that. You have to get your broker company license, and I obtained that license December 13th of 2011.
Really? Okay, so we're talking about it now over a decade that you have been operating as a full licensed broker.
Correct.
So how has your life changed by going from, there's a certain level of simplicity when you just have to actually go out and build relationships and buy or sell homes, or help somebody buy or sell homes. To become an entrepreneur, there is extra licensing there, and there is business issues that you have to attend to. Sure. Had to have been a new phase or a new learning experience?
Yes. I think for me, I get probably as much as I will always root for the underdog. I always want people to be happy. I always hope that people are happiest with me. That's not always the case.
But I got to chime in here that sometimes the fuel that burns the hottest is proving other people wrong. And it's really positive when it's just about proving yourself right. But what I'm getting at is that those haters are fuel in the tank.
Oh, for sure.
And it pushes you and it actually ends up that where their hate might be that they're wishing failure upon you or hating on you, that what they end up doing is actually fueling your success.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're so outwardly wishing that upon you that you're able to take that and harness that energy and turn it into something very positive and very powerful. And that's...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're I don't know if there's a greater motivation than to know someone's rooting against you. Mm-hmm. It's, my mom would tell you it probably wasn't my greatest quality growing up, but I will tell you it's done well for me in adulthood to have that tell me I can't.
Exactly. Well, and I would think that, I mean, from my personal experience, from myself and from other entrepreneurs, you don't necessarily like being told no.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. Okay.
Ask my husband.
And you don't like being told that you can't accomplish something.
No.
Okay, so I'm sitting there going, no, I like all of this resonates with me. It is hot burning fuel in the tank.
Yes.
For those people, and it's like, I find it funny because it's counterproductive to what they're trying to accomplish, and all I ever do is thank them.
Right.
Because it is very hot burning fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're right.
So honestly, I don't know that some of our success would exist if it wasn't for those haters that continued to give that push that allowed you to, to not give up in those certain times, because their fuel actually ended up being the fuel that got you over the top.
Yeah. Stings a little in the moment, but it propels you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
So you have a little bit of that, or do you have a lot of that? I mean, because, and you know what, I might be asking for a certain amount of criticism upon myself. I would think, because I know that the real estate industry is a heavily female industry, that there would be a fair amount of drama in the industry as a whole. Because I'm not exactly sure where some of those haters or those naysayers would come from for you, but inside of the industry being filled with a lot of women, I mean, I can only imagine where.
I'll be honest with you. This will probably come as a surprise. I have always been one to say there's enough business for everyone.
Okay.
There really is enough business for everyone, and some of my very best friends, I have done a considerable amount of consoling of agents that are not at my agency.
Really?
Because of some hatefulness they've received within their own place.
Okay.
I'll say.
Well, and I mean,
or competitiveness.
Yeah,
I don't want to say
exactly.
hatefulness. Yeah. And sometimes that, like you said, that heat can.
So it wasn't necessarily drama, as it was competitiveness.
Yeah.
Okay.
That being said, I think by and large, I think we have a pretty good bit of camaraderie locally. I don't want to say anything that's going to throw me on anybody's radar, but I would
because I mean, Kokomo is a different community as a whole, and some of that is really, really positive.
Yeah.
Some of it, big small town, is there's a little bit of negative that goes in with that. I mean, but it is what it is. I mean,
I think that there's more, because there's lately, especially, there's been more out of area agents that are kind of drifting in.
Really?
And they're not real friendly. I think the local agents, really by and large, are really do work well together.
Okay.
In all honesty, I can't think of too many instances. I mean, I've heard, stories, every now and again.
Yep.
Thankfully, I seem to be miscongeniality because I don't get a lot of that. No, I really don't.
Well, but I mean, I do know on the other side of it. I mean, real estate industry, it is about, you got to last the test of time. And just because somebody comes in from the outside doesn't mean that they'll necessarily last the test of time.
Well, and I think that's the other thing too is, it sounds so cliche, but people will remember how you treat them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can fight for this one paycheck and you can do people dirty and you might win your way to make this dollar, but you will not last very long in this industry. doing people that way.
Well, and that's because that comes down to your reputation, and you
it's
can't
not
cut
worth
your
it.
you can't cut your nose off to spite your face.
No, there is not. And again, like I said, it's just I don't know. Sometimes I feel very when I talk about these things, especially with my kids, like trying to talk them down out of some drama that they're going through. It sounds like so. I don't know, Little House on the Prairie or something. You're trying to talk, but I'm like, it's not worth it.
Yep.
It's just not worth it.
Well, that's basically trying to tell kids though that everything they have in the moment that they think that is the end of the world, that it's like, okay, you're not getting that. You still have another 50 or 60 or 70 years to your life. It's not that end of the world, but
and it's kind of it's like that in the real estate industry. But fortunately, I think, especially those that have been in the business longer than just a few minutes, they know that we're really all working towards the same goal.
Absolutely.
You have a client, I have a client. At the end of the day, we all entered into a contract because we all want the same thing. Your seller wants to sell this house. My buyer wants to buy this house. Let's find a mutually agreeable solution for whatever this problem is. You can try to railroad somebody into a closing table, but you're not going to do that very many times.
You'll get it done once, but no, I completely understand what you're saying.
Your best route is to, you attract more bees with honey.
Yes. Well, and I mean, I do want to say that, like, I understand that, again, big, small town, and you're trying to choose your words a little bit carefully, but the point of this podcast is that those are very real issues that inside of networks of people, I mean, your character, your reputation, especially in a day and age of digital and social media, will follow you anywhere and everywhere. And being conscious of that, and I understand that people will do drastic things when it's about putting food on the table. But when it's just about competition, cutting your nose off to spite your face, like you said, it might get you to the closing table and get your commission today, but all you've done is sever yourself from any relationship that could get you commissions tomorrow. Absolutely.
Especially, the market being what it is right now, if you have a house listed, you're going to have multiple offers. I can almost guarantee you that. So
has it started to cool down though?
No.
No? Really? Okay.
Nope. Supply is just still so low that you're just, if a house comes on, you just still have so many buyers out there that it's just still crazy. But in the situations that we're talking about, and thankfully it's really is hypothetical because we're not really seeing it. But if you did something like that, the fact of the matter is, if you're in a situation where there's multiple offers and you have a reputation for being difficult to deal with, and you have all these offers and they're very competitive with one another, you're probably not going to, have a lot the chance of.
Well, I know, because people talk.
That's just the nature of the business. So you want a reputation for being a problem solver and that you're easy to work with and that you're proactive, and that's what I want to work with.
No, I just said I defend my reputation fiercely because I know that it will either open or close doors, and that's
absolutely.
Yep. You're right. So, okay, you open up your own business. You can't be a one-man show. So even if you're going to be a boutique, you still got to hire people. How has that worked out for you over the last decade?
Good.
Good?
Good, yeah. Yep. I have 8 agents with me, and gosh, I wish I could go down a list and tell you how long each one of them has been with me, but
they've stuck.
Yeah.
Then you're doing something right.
Yeah. They're awesome. I have an awesome group of people with me, a fun group of people with me, and, very diverse. They're just a fun group of people to work with.
No, that's awesome. I see, and you smile. Obviously, when you're thinking about your team and you can smile, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, just trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. Have you had one of those fairy tales over the last decade where it has just been totally? And don't get me wrong, I do have to it has to be a certain exhilarating from your side of it to be able to operate in a market like this. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's a lot, but I would think that there's a certain amount of frustration if you, maybe I should back up even further. Do you find that you have an equal mix, or do you find that you're more on the buyer or the seller side of it? Because I'm thinking that if you're on the seller side of it, okay, well, you got your pick of however many offers is coming to the table. But the people I've talked to have been pretty frustrated when they're trying to buy a home because of the market. How are you dealing with that?
I think if any of us could say we were primarily a seller's agent right now, we would high five ourselves. We're short of sellers, period.
Okay, and which is
that's really what's created the market situation as it is right now, and that's really what's the driving force of the cost and the hurry and all of the factors that we're dealing with right now. So I mean, by and large, we're representing buyers. So, I wouldn't say that it's frustrating. It's funny for realtors. I'm like, there's probably some type of a diagnosis that we all share. I don't know. Is it exhilarating? Absolutely. But boy, the highs are high and the lows are low, because you really ride this roller coaster with your people. And, I was just with some clients on Sunday, and we've seen several houses, and they've written some offers, and, they start to feel defeated. And one thing for me, they're like, well, we just feel guilty because, we don't want to just keep dragging you to these houses. And I'm like, first of all, we're seeing like a house at a time, because there's not that many houses that come available. So
okay,
I don't feel like you're dragging me to houses. This is the nature of the market right now. So this is what it is. And it's not a pair of jeans. I don't want you to settle. If it takes you 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years.
And today it could take you 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to have the house that you want, and I don't want you to feel like don't feel badly for me. You chose me. That I will never take that for granted. When people choose a realtor, this is something that's so humbling to me. In almost every case, this is someone's largest investment. They are choosing you. That is a tremendous amount of faith that they are putting in you. I don't take that lightly. That's why it's never been, a lot of agents will post, and I have no problem with it. Some of my good friends, they'll post, and their production knocks my socks off, and kudos to them. That's awesome. I don't begrudge them any of it. I think it's wonderful. That's not what makes me tick. For me, it's not numbers driven for me. What makes me feel like I have been successful is when I can be with a client. I know their kids. I've met their family. I know their parents. They know they can call me tomorrow in 6 months or 6 years, and I'm going to be right there to answer any questions that they have. And I would tell you that any client that I've had to this point in 20 years would tell you that that is the experience that they had with me. I have zero question about that.
That's awesome.
That is success to me, not how many transactions I cranked out, this year or this past month or whatever. That's what I want. That's what makes me feel fulfilled in this career. That's what I wanted for Apple Tree.
Okay.
That's what it was really. That's what it was really about, and that's what I'm so proud of our agents. They all go above and beyond answering questions. I have girls who are phenomenal at staging homes and decorating, and they'll meet with clients and pick colors, and they're just awesome, and they just do all of that for their people.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bad thing is that I'm thinking back that the 08, the 09 recession, it had to have been everything completely turning on its head back then. Because as a realtor, I'm curious as to, I pay attention to the Fed because I have long been saying that this market is a bubble. people talk about bubbles, but I'm like, no, I've seen bubbles burst, and this to me looks like ridiculousness. Like I would never buy a home right now because I see a huge bubble. What are you? I mean, would you disagree with that statement, or is this just a new normal?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a new normal. I mean, what I'll tell you is people are still buying homes. I mean, I have had people, just last week I had someone, he sat down and he said, you don't want to hear this, but he said, I'm kind of thinking maybe we should just wait till next year to buy a house. And I said, well, I mean, it's your decision, but last year I had people that thought they'd wait till this year. Yep. I mean, the thing is we don't have a crystal ball.
Exactly.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's going to happen. What I do know, past being an indicator, is that the market is cyclical.
Yep.
So the market is cyclical.
Exactly. Well, no, and because I've talked to people that they've sold homes because they wanted to cash in on the highs that they're at, but then they couldn't find another home and they ended up moving back into an apartment. But honestly, I'm wondering if that's necessarily a bad thing because the interest rates are starting to go up. I know that that's meant to actually cool off the market in general. But oddly, I'm like, Kokomo has always had its own ability to flourish.
Right.
Even through some of the hardest times. But is this just not enough sellers coming to the market, or do we have like a new group of people that are migrating into this area that is creating such an outweighted buyers to sellers?
No, I think we just don't have enough sellers. And I think for what you just said, I think a lot of sellers want to sell because they want to cash in, but then they got to go somewhere.
Exactly.
And they don't know where they're going to go. The other thing that's been real interesting with all the COVID situation was we have investors that have long been buying foreclosures and flipping properties and putting those back on the market. We didn't have foreclosures for about 2 years.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, because nobody was allowed to.
They weren't allowed to foreclose on anybody.
Yep.
We didn't have, I have guys that go to the sheriff sales and tax sales. Those just started again.
Okay.
So we're well behind on those things, but they are starting again. So, as they're buying them now and they're working on those things will start hitting the market. As they finish those, where those prices come in, of course, depend on where comps are at that time. But, all those things factor into where we are today.
No, because I can remember I was looking at an investment home and I couldn't bring myself to bid over 50. And I got beat out by somebody that bid 55. And I was looking at it going, this neighborhood, like 90, 95 is the max on this neighborhood. And I don't know, either they just took a bigger risk or they saw something I didn't, because it wasn't 6 months later, all of a sudden the 90, 95 neighborhood had moved to 125 neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, well, now it makes sense that that extra $5,000 really paid off for them.
Yeah. And we saw it sometimes, but I'll tell you in the last few years, we have seen a lot of buyers from other states buying properties sight unseen.
Really? As investments. So they're not moving into the area. They're just, okay.
Yeah, just as rentals.
Now, and I got to ask on that end of it, from other states or from other countries?
A little of both.
That's because I've seen a lot of that from other countries, but I didn't know it would make its way to Kokomo. I know about a lot of that in the major metropolis areas.
Yeah. And sometimes clusters of homes. I got wrapped up in one that it was kind of a chain of transactions, but finally I called the title company and I'm like, what is going on? And they were like, well, because what is happening is there's a whole group of homes that's being purchased and then it all has to, take place at once. And so, that does happen too. So, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's what, in that way, that's kind of, I have always said I could write a coffee table book.
There we go.
I could tell funny stories for days about things that have happened. I have some funny, not so funny, but things that have happened. And
so you said that you wanted to go into business for yourself because you wanted to do some things differently. How about a couple things that you have chosen to do things what you consider to be a little bit differently?
Okay, so I'm going to give you one that. Actually, this is really a small thing, but one thing, just practical level, something that we do not do at Apple Tree is floor time. Okay, and that
you're getting described floor time.
So floor time is where at the time you would go into the real estate office and you would be assigned for like a 3 or 4 hour section of time, and you would answer the phones and you would basically be the secretary. You would schedule appointments for showings for anyone's listings or schedule showing or a home inspection. Or the idea is, they call it floor time, the idea is that you might get a lead, and you might, at that point in time, you might get a lead where somebody calls in and they're not affiliated with an agent, they have a question. And if you get that cold call, you could pick up that client. That worked 20 years ago, okay? Well, now everyone has cell phones and social media and so forth. So very rarely do people call the office because it's too easy to see the agent's number and directly text that agent or call that agent and ask for the information. So I'm not having agents come in and sit at a desk for 3 or 4 hours at a time to man the phone. So we just have a phone system where simply if you don't know your agent's phone number, you can dial their extension and it'll direct connect to their cell phone.
Okay.
But most of the time people just directly, anyway. Yep. But they're not obligated to any time. If we have a sales meeting, they come in for that. But other than that, they come and go as they please. They can do what they want. The other thing is just from a concept standpoint, it just really is something for me. I never wanted to, I don't want them, have never wanted them. They know that I don't see myself as their boss. I am behind them 150%. I am the most peacekeeping person that you could ever want to meet. I really am.
That's a full stop. Looks like there's a butt coming.
But if I need to back up my people, I would put money that you will not find a more worthy competitor.
That's awesome.
Because I will go down fighting. But I don't view myself as their boss. I have your back. Mm-hmm. They know they can call me day or night, and I don't sleep. I think it's a realtor thing.
Is it, because I was going to ask about that, how is there such thing for you as work-life balance? Is there such thing for, do you know what burnout looks like? No,
there is no work-life balance. So I would say when we were talking about, people glamorizing, what it is to be an entrepreneur or whatever, I can get to that because there are a lot of things that people don't, think about. But to what we were saying, like I'm not their boss. They know that in the sense that, you are an individual agent. I'm here to back you up. I'll answer any questions that you have. 9 times out of 10, if they have a question, they already know the answer. They just want somebody to tell them, yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
But we're a team. I always refer to them. We don't function as a team in a sense of pay structure. They are individual agents. They have their own pay structure. We're not a team concept, but we are a team. Mm-hmm. It is not Tiffany is the boss and then these people are underneath Tiffany. We are a team.
You keep your organization flat.
Absolutely. So that, that's how we work things there. As far as glamorizing, this is kind of funny because this is just stuff that's happened here recently. And I do laugh. Our office building, and I love our location. We have it's an old Victorian building. It's beautiful, huge, tall doorways. Wouldn't trade our building. Love it. Hardwood floors. It just looks like a little boutique. It's lovely. Love it. We're right across Washington downtown. We're right next to the eye doctor. And then behind the alley is the Kokomo Rescue Mission.
Okay.
And people ask often, is that a problem? Mm-hmm. In the decade that we've been there, 2 times I've had someone come into my building, and neither was ugly. One thought he was at the pain clinic, which was a really funny conversation because he came in and sat down at my desk, and we had a full conversation. And I finally said, well, we talked about houses, and finally I said, well, we weren't getting anywhere. And I said, well, what can I do for you today? And he said, well, you can write me a prescription for my pain medicine. And I said,
I'll sell you a house.
I said, no, I can't. I think you meant to go to the pain clinic down the road. And he said, this ain't the pain clinic. No, it's not. So anyway, wow. God love him. So we got him pointed in the right direction, but it's really not been an issue. But it is funny because sometimes I'll be outside and they'll talk and tease sometimes, mostly the workers. They're like, I never would have thought you'd be doing your own landscaping out here. Or you're spraying your weeds. It's not glamorous all the time. Mm-hmm. Had a air conditioning unit issue this last week, and condensation built up, and then some plaster was falling down, and so now we're having a ceiling repaired, and had to get the AC repaired, and your
responsibility.
Yeah, you're cleaning the building, and fun stuff like that, and making sure the landscaping looks good. And
okay, so let me put you on the spot.
Sure.
You said that you chose to get into real estate because it worked, because you were a mother or your family and home life. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now here you are 20 years later. Mm-hmm. How has your family been affected by you being an entrepreneur that does not know work-life balance, that generally you are on? I mean, because I know when it comes to your clients, they don't care what your schedule you're on. They expect you to answer the phone. Mm-hmm. Then obviously you're responsible for 8 other people. Mm-hmm. Well, so how does that now? These is a lot of responsibility. How does that affect your home life now? I mean, you said your ex-husband works for you. There's got to be a certain dynamic in all of this that right. You're an entrepreneur, but the buck stops at you. How is that affecting your home life or your personal life?
Honestly, so here's the interesting thing. I have had a lot of people ask me, or I have actually had a lot of people when they're considering getting their license, want to know about hours and things. And I tell them, you don't work less. In fact, I'll tell you, you're going to work more, but you will have flexibility. I have not missed a field trip ever. I have volunteered at more events at school than probably anybody. I was teasing the office staff because it was my son's last year in middle school, and he'll be in high school next year. And I have delivered more lunches to that school, to that kid. And I'm like, you guys are going to miss me next year. But it is true. I mean, there is no shut off. Mm-hmm. There's no shut off. So, that can get to you, but the trade-off, and I guess this is where on those days, because they do happen, where you're like, my dear Lord, I just want to sit by the pool and not answer a text and not take a phone call and whatever. But during those times when I'm having that moment, you think to yourself, okay, but it's Tuesday at 2:00 and I'm sitting by the pool with all of my kids. And it's worth it.
The perspective.
It's worth it.
No, and that's what I think too many people miss the perspective mm-hmm. of life in general. I mean, because I'm the first one to be like, while you're complaining, you realize that 50 years ago, you might not have even had indoor plumbing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a certain perspective that you could gain by thinking about how good life is in general. But there are some freedoms and some benefits that do come from entrepreneurship.
Nothing's perfect.
No, not at all.
Nothing's perfect. But this is pretty darn close.
So, and that's what I was about to say. So how would you define success? I mean, obviously you're not worried about making $1 billion, but do you feel successful?
I do. I have an awesome husband who is tremendously supportive. We have 5 children between us.
You say between us, we're talking about Brady Bunch style?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. We have, he has 3, I have 2, 4 boys, 1 girl.
Oh, wow.
Or I said that backwards. He's like 4 boys, I wish. 4 girls and 1 boy.
Okay.
And, 5 healthy kids. We have a great life. Everything is not perfect, but everything is good. Everything is really good. To me, that is success. We have 2 have graduated. The 3rd one's graduating high school June 5th. My oldest stepdaughter is actually running her own very successful business. Could not have dreamt, frankly, that she would have been this successful this early.
Do you think that could be a detriment? I'm asking
this young.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like when you're in the middle of it, it sucks, and you got a hard time appreciating when you're in the middle of it. But I can look back, and I'm like, well, those were lessons learned that through the longevity of the game that they will serve me well. And I can remember that before the pandemic, I made the statement several times in 2019 that sooner or later the tide was going to go out and we were going to find out who was wearing clothes. Now, I did not expect that to happen in the form of the pandemic, but we found very quickly who was prepared to change gears, who was prepared to survive, and who had never went through any type of downturn, cyclical or otherwise. So when you say that she's experienced that success, that so much success early on, well, the wins don't teach you a whole lot of losses or lessons. It's the losses that you end up learning more from.
Right. She's been at it a few years. I mean, she's built her way up. I wouldn't say she jumped into success, but she's built it, and she's built it steadily. I think she's got good influences.
Are you mentoring her?
I mean,
or is she allowing you or seeking your mentorship?
She listens.
Okay.
She listens. And I think that, she's local. She's, at our house regularly. So even when she doesn't want to, we're in her ear.
Yep.
So she'll have guidance whether she wants it or not, but she's got a good head on her shoulders, and she's got good business instincts. So she's honestly been really smart about controlled growth. For the amount of success she's had, she probably could have jumped into some bigger situations, but she's still keeping it low key.
Okay.
So that's been really smart, I feel like.
Yep.
But that's been really good. It's really funny too, because, my daughter, I thought maybe she would get into, I don't know what I thought she would do, but she graduated with academic honors, and I thought, maybe she'll go to medical school. She was invited to Harvard. I mean,
Really?
all this stuff. And ultimately decided she wanted to do cosmetology and open her own salon in the future. My oldest stepdaughter is a medical cosmetologist. That's not what I meant. A medical esthetician.
Okay.
You see, this is working out very well for me in my future. I am very happy with these choices. But it's funny because when we were talking, and my daughter was like, okay, Dad started Community First Mortgage before it was Community First Bank, and you guys had the pie shop when you were married. My stepdad has owned several businesses, still owns several businesses. You started Apple Tree Realty. Did you really think I was going to graduate high school and want to go work for someone else? And I'm like, dang you and all your logic.
No, but the thing, because I was going to ask you whether it was an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial vein in the family, or
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, because I don't think a single one of them really have a big desire to get in. I don't know. I don't know that I can see any of them doing. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
No, and I mean, I because I would say that I'm probably the first in my family that has done anything quote unquote entrepreneurial, and I encourage my children not to follow in my path. Both of them have chosen not to. Son got into sales, and my daughter got into human resources. It's like they didn't have a lot of appreciation because they lived some of the actual lessons alongside of me as I was dealing with the pains of. But I've talked to a lot of people that there's entrepreneurial families, and it seems to go back several generations. And
it's just really funny to me, I guess, because you couldn't convince me now ever to do a 9-to-5, but we know what that's like. You know, if you go to a 9-to-5 and you do a great job, you can go clock in and you can get a great job and you do it, and then you clock out and you go home and live your life.
You can leave it there. Yeah.
You can leave it there, and you don't have to worry about building this and making and it's your baby, and you have to make sure that it's successful and you grow it, and you just go and you clock in and you get a paycheck. And even though I love it and it's so rewarding and it's lucrative, it's been a fantastic choice for me. You know, then you see your kid do it and you're like, oh, are you sure that's what you want to do?
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. But you know, when they put it to you that way, you're like, well, I mean, you know, my parents never, ever made me feel like I couldn't do any. I could have told them I wanted to walk on the moon and they would have been like, well, heck yeah, you can. And my thing is that I think too many parents flat just told their kids you can be anything you want, that they forgot to tell them as long as you're willing to work for it. And that's like they miss that critical piece of being willing to work for it. And so many of them just think that it's all supposed to come easy, and it's like, no. I mean, if you want above average things, then it's going to require above average effort in order to achieve those things. And that's where I guess for myself, it's like you got to let yourself off the hook, because I can say this with 100% certainty with my husband and myself, that they've seen the real and the raw. They know it's not all roses and rainbows. We have a beautiful life. They know how hard we work for it
to get there. Yep.
And you can do it, but like you said, you're going to work for it, and you'll get out what you put in.
Exactly.
And you know, it's the same conversation I've had with every agent that's come to interview. It's you don't get your real estate license and it's like a certificate of deposit and you just start getting dividends, you know?
Yeah. No. And that's because
you get out what you put in.
And that because I was about ready to ask if you had any lessons or principles for success in life. And I think that you just really hit the nail on the head in general, that you get out of it what you put into it. In
everything.
Yep.
Yep.
So as we start to wrap this up, I mean, in this day and age, there's no way you can be a realtor and not have some type of a digital or social media presence. If people want to find you or find your business, how do they find you?
So on Facebook, just super easy. It's Apple Tree Realty.
Okay.
Is on Facebook, or on Instagram is ATR, Apple Tree Realty. ATR Kokomo.
Okay.
Is our Instagram page.
Anything personal or just the Apple Tree Realty?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're welcome to follow me personally, especially if you like all things patriotic.
Oh, really? Well, no. And I noticed that in your bio that that you had listed the Bible and Atomic Habits as books, and I've read both. I mean, that's
Right.
the one's a little longer read than the other.
Right.
But now, an avid reader or just
I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an avid reader. Those are probably just two. Well, obviously the Bible. And in all honesty, anytime someone's looking for advice, my husband and I were joking about this. This made me laugh. He ordered some Bibles. He said he had more of his guy friends, this fairly recently, coming in and asking him for advice. And he was like, and nobody wants to read the Bible front to back, right? But he said, Proverbs. Just go to Proverbs. It's got everything you need to know. It's just life principles. Just go read it. That's what you need to know. But you know, again, for me, the Bible, that's just what you need to know. And Atomic Habits probably, it's been years and years since I read that, but was impactful when I read it.
So you think it served you well then?
Yes. Yeah. Because, you know, those daily habits is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, the little things add up.
No, I've been a big proponent of, I think everybody has bad habits. And if you're going to get rid of bad habits, stacking good daily habits.
Yes.
It's like you can't just bring in good habits and keep the bad. You got to get rid of some old bad habits to bring in new, and then ideally stacking those good daily habits. No, it was one of the more pleasurable, a little bit of a longer read because it was deeper into the whole habit creation, but I very much enjoyed reading that book.
Yep. Very impactful for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that we are going to wrap this up today. So, Tiffany, thank you very much for coming on, and for everybody listening. Until next time, you guys have a good night.